Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video in a new series as part of my campaign, and it's on guidance for people who suffer with chronic pain, and it's coming from my own personal experience. I've dealt with this for 16 years now, more than half of my life. Now in this first video we're going to be talking about heat or cold and how you can use that to help with your chronic pain. Now obviously there's lots of different things you can do to help manage your pain. Obviously your pain level is subjective. There's a lot of people out there who do suffer with chronic pain. So latest evidence is showing that in Scotland, where I am, 1 in 5 adults live with chronic pain, which is, it's a lot of people. Population a bit over 5 million. So if you assume 1 million of them are young people, then you're talking sort of 800,000 plus people that live with chronic pain. So that's quite a few. Obviously some of those will live with chronic pain that can be managed with over-the-counter medication or no medication whatsoever. There will also be people like myself that are taking some pretty heavy-duty medication and are having to do a lot to manage the pain on a daily basis, and it almost becomes a full-time job. Now, my guidance is going to focus on things you can do yourself, because self-help is one way, regardless of the health system you operate under, that you can help manage your own chronic pain and control your own chronic pain without having to involve lots of doctors and other individuals to try and manage it and go through waiting lists and all these kind of bits and pieces. Now there's a number of different ways that you can heat or cool yourself, or heat or cool areas of your body that are causing you pain and distress. So off the top of my head, you have people that use hot baths, hot showers, people who use hot water bottles, people who use sort of heating sprays and heating creams, like Deep Heat and Ralgex and other brands do apply. There's also capsaicin oil, so that's chili extract, and if you rub that on your skin it gets pretty hot pretty darn quick. And obviously in terms of cooling, you've got ice packs, wrapped up ice cubes, cool baths, cool showers, and you've also got cooling gels and things like that. Now in my experience, it very much depends on the pain you're suffering with. So my chronic pain, the chronic pain side for me is a very burning sensation. That's a big part of it. And that means that applying heat to that tends to aggravate it. So with the chronic pain areas, I use cooling ointments and gels that I rub in. I don't do that too often because obviously the rubbing in part can make things more painful, but I also use bags of ice packs and things like that. Now it is important when using bags of ice and ice packs and things to put a barrier between that and your skin, otherwise there is a significant chance of getting sort of chill burns and things, which are not particularly pleasant. And let's remember, you know, the priority here is reducing your pain, not causing another source of pain or aggravating it. I do also use heat as sources of heat as well, so obviously using crutches all the time and having to walk in quite an unusual manner to try and prevent dislocations, it can cause a lot of physical tightness, and that for me doesn't really cause pain because of the blocking mechanism and the gateway mechanism in the brain for pain. But what it does do is make it more difficult for me to move, which puts strain on other parts of my body and can increase the number of dislocations. So in those situations I will use heating sprays, heating gels, hot water bottles, things like that to try and heat up the area and loosen off the musculature. Now I do have on occasion prolonged dislocations. Are those ones where you can't get it back very quickly, and in that case the muscles around the joint, the muscles that are being put under a huge amount of strain, can start to go into spasm. Now the spasm is not something you can really stop with heat or cold or things like that, but I found that after the dislocations those muscles can be pretty darn sore at times. So in those situations it can actually be best with a combination of hot and cold. So I would start with some heat to loosen the muscle up, and then cold to reduce any swelling. Now obviously remember, with injuries and things like that, with acute injuries, the RICE method, so that's rest, ice, compression and elevation. So obviously getting off your feet or not using the area of the body that's been injured, compressing it a bit to try and prevent swelling, using ice or another cold item to again reduce swelling, and elevation to stop lots of fluid building up in the area. So when it comes to using heating items or cooling items, it's going to be down to your own experience. You need to experiment a bit. Now, I will say at this point that if you're going to look at medications that can do it, so whether that's sprays or ointments or gels or things like that, then it's important you speak to a medical professional first. It's important that you also look at the ingredients on the gels and look at the medications you're already taking and do your research, because there will be medications out there that do not like interacting with the cooling gels, the cooling sprays, the heating gels, the heating sprays. So if you're going to go down the medication route, then I would strongly recommend speaking to a medical professional first, and also doing your research, ideally before you even go and speak to them, so you know the questions to ask and things like that. You will find in chronic pain units in the UK, they will actually prescribe or recommend some of these items as well as ways of treating and managing chronic pain and bouts of acute pain or incident pain without having to resort to heavier duty medication and things. That's got to be one of your aims. The heavy duty medication has a lot of side effects. It can cause long-term problems. It can cause serious health problems. So anything you can do to either reduce the heavy duty medication you're taking or prevent you having to take more going forward is a positive thing. So it's important you experiment. It's important you speak to medical professionals if you're going to start using any of the medication options. But one of the reasons I'm recommending this is because of the cost effectiveness of it. It is not expensive to put water into a freezer, to get some ice cubes out, to put them in a little plastic or a Ziploc bag, and put a tea towel on part of your body and then put the ice on it. It's not expensive to do that. It's not particularly expensive to fill a hot water bottle and put that against your back or something like that. So this is a cost-effective and easy-to-use method to hopefully reduce your chronic pain, reduce your physical discomfort, and make your life a bit easier. So the trick, as I've said, is to experiment, is to work out what works for you, is to take the medical advice and look into things side effect wise with regard to any kind of medication route you're going down, and if I'm going to be brutal about it, apply some common sense. If you are struggling with using lots of cold items, then you need to reevaluate that. If you're using lots of heating items and it's not making a big difference, then you need to reevaluate that as well. But obviously, from my personal experience, anything that can take the pain down a few percentage points is generally worth doing. So that's the first video. To heat or not to heat, that is the question, and obviously future videos will be talking about other things as well, physical things you can do, psychological things you can do, behavioural things you can do, all to try and reduce your chronic pain. So I would ask if anyone out there watching this has got any suggestions or any ideas or any products they've used for heating or cooling or things like that that have been really effective for them, then please put them in the comments, let people know. It's important that as a community and as a group of people we put this information out there and share it so that other people who are in our situation can improve theirs. So thanks very much for your time, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Cheers.